The breeze that morning felt like a warning. Light, quiet, yet whispering something northwest one could place. Their mother was peeling yam by the fire, her back bent like someone carrying yesterday's troubles. The youngest boy chased a chicken around the compound, shouting as if the world would always be kind. But she just stood there, at the edge of their small house, staring into the bush path. Her name wasn't the type that filled rooms. It sat gently on lips and left quickly. But what she carried inside, no day show for face. They had never had much. Their father was the kind of man who returned home with empty hands but full anger. If the roof didn't leak, the rain found another way in. Yet in all of that, she protected her brothers like something sacred. Even the smallest things, roasted maize, pocket change, a clean shirt, she gave to them first. That morning, a tall man in military boots came with two others. Their voices were loud, their eyes too sharp. One held a paper. Another had a gun slung over his shoulder like it was nothing. They said the boys had been picked. For what, they didn't explain well. Something about taking them to serve the land. But serve how? Where? Nobody knew. Their mother dropped the knife. The chicken stopped running. Silence fell like dust after a storm. She didn't ask questions. She just stepped forward, calm like the harmattan sky. Her voice didn't shake. Take me instead. The men laughed. Said it didn't work like that. But she stood her ground, eyes steady. Take me. Let them stay. And just like that, the path of her life changed without thunder or drum. No one begged her. No one had to. She had already made up her mind. Her brothers cried, but she smiled. As if she knew something they didn't. As if love itself had borrowed her feet and walked into danger. The soldiers didn't expect her to mean it. Not really. They stared at her like she was speaking the language of mad people. One of them even scratched his head, as if trying to wake from a strange dream. But she didn't move. Her chin stayed up, her eyes steady, even though her legs were trembling like tired broomsticks. Their mother begged. She held one of the soldiers by the hem of his uniform, her voice shaky, her wrapper half loose. She's only a girl, she said. You can't take her. But the man holding the paper looked at the girl again, then looked at the two small boys behind her. His eyes softened just for a second. She's volunteering, he said. Not her choice. And that was that. They gave her a few minutes. Just enough to grab whatever she needed. But she didn't go inside. She stood right there and told her mother not to cry. Told her brothers not to fight again over slippers and groundnut. Told them to eat before food gets cold and to help sweep the compound. That was her goodbye. They walked her down the bush path. It felt like a funeral nobody wanted to attend. The trees didn't move, the birds didn't sing. Even the wind stayed away. She didn't cry. Not because she was strong. But because her tears had already paid for this moment a long time ago, in days of skipping food, in nights of staying up when the boys were sick, in mornings of wearing torn clothes so they could wear decent ones. She walked with the soldiers into the unknown like someone boarding a bus without asking for the destination. She didn't know what was coming. She just knew her brothers were safe. That was enough. Behind her, the small compound stayed still. A cooking pot boiled over. A chicken pecked lazily. And her mother fell to her knees, watching her daughter vanish into the bush path like a secret the world wasn't ready to hear. The journey was longer than she expected. Not in distance, but in weight. Every step felt like she was carrying her brothers on her back. The soldiers didn't talk much. The one with the gun kept chewing cola, while the other hummed something off-key. The third one, the youngest, kept glancing at her like she was out of place. Maybe she was. They stopped at a clearing where a rusted pickup truck was waiting. She climbed in without being told. The back seat was full of girls. Some older, some younger. Some crying, some staring into space like their eyes had forgotten how to see. No one asked names. No one gave smiles. She sat in silence, her hands on her lap. A girl beside her had bruises on her arm. Another one clutched a tiny cloth bag like it held her whole world. None of them looked ready for wherever they were going. As the truck groaned forward, she watched the trees blur past. Her mind kept going back home. Had her brothers eaten? Had her mother stopped crying? Would they think of her tomorrow, or next week, or 10 years from now? She didn't notice when they left the red sand behind and entered the rocky path. Her legs were stiff, her neck sore. The truck smelled like sweat and old dust. But nobody complained. Complaining didn't change anything. By the time they arrived, it was almost dark. The place didn't look like a camp. It looked like a prison pretending to be something else. Tin roofs. Tall fences. Uniformed men everywhere. They were asked to come down. The gate opened like the mouth of something that only swallows. She stepped in, barefoot now. Her slippers had cut during the journey, and no one gave her new ones. A woman in uniform shouted at them to stand in line. Another woman, with a stick, walked past them like a headmistress searching for who to punish. But she didn't flinch. Even when they shouted, even when they sized her up like meat. She kept her face calm. She had made a promise to protect her brothers. And promises, especially the ones born from love, don't break easily. The first night was not for sleep. They were herded into a long room with no windows, just one blinking bulb that made the shadows dance. Thin mattresses lined the floor like borrowed comfort. The air smelled like sweat, fear, and something no one could name. No one spoke loud. They only whispered, like their voices could get them in trouble. She sat in a corner, knees to her chest, eyes open. The girls around her moved like they didn't want to be noticed. Some cried quietly into their wrappers. One kept scratching her skin like something was crawling on her. Another stared at the ceiling, not blinking. She couldn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because her tears would feel like betrayal. She had chosen this. She had stepped forward. She had said, "Take me." So now she must carry it. The door banged open around midnight. A woman in uniform entered with a torch and a whistle. "Wake up," she shouted, even though no one had slept. They were taken outside into the cold night. Made to kneel in rows. One girl collapsed. Another vomited. The stars watched silently. A man in khaki appeared. He looked important. The others stood straighter when he came near. He walked slowly, scanning their faces. When he stopped in front of her, she didn't drop her gaze. She didn't smile either. "New one," he said. "What's your name?" She gave it. He smirked. "You think you're brave?" She said nothing. He bent closer. "We'll see." Then he moved on, just like that. But the way the others avoided her eyes after that told her enough. He had noticed her. And in a place like this, being noticed was not always a good thing. By dawn, their knees were sore, their throats dry. They were sent back in like animals after rain. The room didn't feel like shelter. Just a pause before the next round. But even then, with pain crawling into her bones, she smiled a little. Her brothers were home. That thought was like a soft cloth wrapped around her spirit. Just enough to keep her from breaking. Morning came like a thief, fast, quiet, and rude. The same woman with the stick marched in again, her face stiff like she had forgotten how to smile. "Line up," she barked, slapping the wall as if the wall owed her something. They were made to sweep, fetch water, scrub toilets, clean offices. No food yet. No rest either. The girl scrubbed a floor until her palms turned red. The soap was harsh, the water cold. One of the older girls hissed, "You better pretend to be sick tomorrow." But she didn't answer. She just kept scrubbing, the same way she used to sweep the compound at home when her mother's back was aching. When she paused, the khaki man from the night before was standing by the doorway, watching. He didn't speak. Just stared, then left. By afternoon, they were called into a small open space with cracked cement ground. An officer began calling names. Some girls were picked and taken away. No one knew where. When they called her name, her heart beat fast, but her face stayed still. She followed. They were led to a low building with no signboard. Inside, a man sat behind a desk, legs crossed, face too calm. He asked her to sit. She didn't move. "I hear you volunteered," he said. She nodded. "For your brothers." She nodded again. He leaned forward. "That kind of love can be dangerous." She didn't reply. "People like you either break or become something else." She waited. He opened a drawer and brought out a small black uniform. "You'll wear this now. You'll train. You'll serve. You'll forget where you came from." She took it with both hands, the cloth heavy like memory. As she walked back to the room, holding the uniform, the other girls stared. Some with fear. Some with respect. One whispered, "You? Already?" She didn't answer. She just folded the black cloth and held it close like a baby that didn't know how cruel the world could be. She had crossed into something deeper now. There was no turning back. But still, her brothers were safe. And that was enough. The uniform fit awkwardly. Too tight around the chest, too loose at the waist. The sleeve scratched her arms. But she wore it like it was part of her skin now. No mirror in the room, but she could feel the change. The morning bell rang. This time louder, sharper. It wasn't for chores. It was for training. They were taken to a dusty open field with wooden poles, tires, ropes, and cement blocks scattered everywhere like war trophies. An officer with a loud voice and even louder whistle stood in front. He didn't bother with greetings. "Here, you run. You crawl. You bleed. You obey." That was all. They were paired in twos. Her partner was a quiet girl with a limp. No one asked what caused it. Nobody had the time. They ran through tires, climbed ropes, rolled in dust. The sun was wicked, no mercy at all. Sweat soaked her back, sand entered her eyes, her feet burned. But she didn't stop. Each time she fell, her partner helped her up. Each time her partner tripped, she lifted her too. No one else cared. But the two of them made a silent pact: if we're going to suffer, let's not do it alone. At the end of the drill, some girls collapsed. Some vomited. The officer laughed like it was theater. "You think this is home training," he said. "Welcome to the real world." As they walked back to the room, her hands shook slightly. Her knees felt like paper. But deep inside her chest, something stronger than pain had begun to grow. Not pride. Not boldness. Just knowing that she hadn't been broken yet. That night, she shared half her food with her partner. Just like she used to do with her brothers. Old habits don't die fast. The girl smiled, her limp forgotten for a moment. You're different," she said. She smiled too, but didn't reply. In a place built to silence people, small kindness was louder than any shout. And even though she was far from home, with no sure tomorrow, she slept with her eyes closed, for the first time since she arrived. The next morning, her partner didn't wake up. She was breathing, but barely. Her eyes flickered like someone in a dream they didn't want to stay in. When the officers came, they poked her, shouted her name, then dragged her out like a broken bucket. No one said where she was taken. The room felt emptier after that. Not just in space, but in spirit. They gave no time to mourn. The whistle blew again. Drills continued. Harder this time. She was paired with someone else, a girl with quick legs and a sharp mouth who didn't like to share water. But that didn't bother her. She had already learned, Not everyone in a dark place wants to hold a torch. Some people enjoy the shadows. That day, they were trained in silence. No one was allowed to speak. Just the sound of commands, the stomp of boots, and their own heavy breathing. The sun pressed on them like punishment. In the evening, she sat alone near the edge of the compound, watching two lizards chase each other along the cracked wall. A small breeze touched her face. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. Then she heard it, whispers. Two guards near the gate. "She's the one," one said. "The commander's watching her," the other replied. She didn't flinch. She just stood slowly and walked back to her room. Inside, she picked up her old wrapper, the only thing she had brought from home. She held it to her face, the scent faded, but still there. Like a distant drumbeat from her village. Like her mother's voice saying, "Don't ever lose yourself, northwest matter where the road takes you." That night, she didn't sleep. She just lay still, eyes open, thinking. If the commander was watching her, let him watch. She didn't come here to shine. She came here to shield. Every pain she took was one less for her brothers. That was the math she lived by. No officer, no heat, no fear could change that. Something changed the next morning. She was summoned early, before drills, before food, before even the bell. A junior officer tapped her shoulder and said, "Commander wants to see you." Just like that. She followed him through a narrow corridor lined with rusted metal. Her footsteps echoed softly, like even the ground was holding its breath. The commander's office was nothing special. A fan creaked above, slow and lazy. A dusty file sat open on the desk. He didn't look up immediately. Just kept writing. Then, without lifting his head, he spoke. "You still think you're strong?" She said nothing. He raised his eyes. "You know, people like you either break early or make trouble." Still, no answer. He leaned back. "We need someone to train the new batch. Girls coming tomorrow. I want to see how useful you can be." She blinked. "Train them?" "Yes," he said. "Unless you prefer to keep mopping floors." She nodded once. "I'll do it." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good. Let's see if your fire lasts longer than your silence." She left the room quietly, but inside her, a small storm had started. Back in the room, the others looked at her differently. Not fear. Not envy. Just curiosity. "You now officer's pet?" one girl asked, folding her arms. She didn't reply. She just picked up the mop and cleaned like always. Because pride had no place here. Later that day, she was given a whistle and a plain brown notebook. No one taught her how to teach. No one explained what to say. But when the truck arrived with the new girls, dusty, scared, some barefoot, she didn't wait for instructions. She greeted them with soft eyes. And when they asked, "Is it hard here?" she said, "Yes." But then added, "But you'll survive." That night, she sat by herself again, staring at the moon. It wasn't full, but it was bright enough. Maybe that's what she had become, not whole, not healed, but still shining. And for now, that was enough. Her name began to move quietly across the camp. Not shouted. Not praised. Just whispered. The girl who never shouted back. The one who shared food. The one who didn't flinch when the gunshots rang during training. The one who walked like she was carrying something bigger than herself. She didn't seek attention. But it followed her like dust in dry season. The new girls listened to her more than the officers. When she said, "Rest," they rested. When she said, "Stand," they stood. And when she said, "You'll be fine," they believed her, even if only a little. The commander noticed too. One afternoon, he called her again. This time, he was holding a letter. A visitor, he said, sliding it across the table. She stared at the paper like it was fire. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. It was from her youngest brother. His handwriting was crooked, but full of life. He wrote about their mother's new stall, about how he passed his exams, about the neighbor's goat giving birth. He said he missed her. He said they were praying every day. He said, "Come back soon. I told Mama you're still our hero." She didn't cry. Not in front of the commander. She folded the letter neatly and placed it in her pocket like gold. When she returned to her room, she read it again. And again. Each time, slower. Each line carried her home for a few seconds. That night, she told a story to the new girls, about a bird who flew far just to make sure its nest stayed safe. They listened, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. "Did the bird come back?" one asked. She smiled. "Sometimes, love means flying first before returning." They all nodded, even though none of them fully understood. She slept with the letter under her pillow. For the first time in weeks, she dreamed. Not of boots, or guns, or drills. But of laughter. Of warm food. Of slippers outside the door. Of her name being called from the kitchen. And just like that, the night didn't feel so heavy. It happened on a morning that felt like any other. The drills had begun. The girls were lined up, dust on their faces, sun already biting. She stood in front, whistle around her neck, notebook tucked under her arm. Then a black SUV rolled into the compound, clean, out of place. The commander stepped out with 3 strangers in fine clothes. 1 woman, 2 men. Their eyes sharp. Their questions sharper. They said they were from headquarters. They asked for files, names, training logs. Nobody smiled. Hours passed. The camp moved like a slow lorry, heavy and confused. Then her name was called again. She entered the same office. But this time, everyone stood when she walked in. The woman from headquarters looked at her long and hard. Then she said, "Your records are clean. Your file shows strength, discipline, and something we don't often see here, heart." She didn't know what to say. So she said nothing. The commander cleared his throat. "They want to offer you a placement. Officer in training. Proper academy. Proper badge." Her breath caught. "Only if you want," the woman added. She nodded. Not fast. Not slow. Just sure. That night, the girls gathered around her. They had heard. News moves quickly when hearts are involved. "You're leaving?" one asked. She nodded again. "Will you come back?" She looked at all of them, dusty faces, tired eyes, soft spirits hiding behind strong bones. "I'll write," she said. "And maybe, one day, I'll return." The next morning, she packed her few things. The same wrapper. The letter. The notebook. As she walked out of the gate, they lined up for her. No command. No order. Just respect. She didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. But because she was walking with everything she had come to protect still inside her. Her brothers. Her name. Her promise. Far away, her village waited. Her mother would hear. Her brothers would dance. And the chicken that always escaped would probably still be running. But today was hers. Not a happy ending. Not a perfect one. Just true.